There's one comment I get on my channel that drives me a little bit more crazy than any other. And no, it's not, have you heard of Jethro Tull? Although I'll admit, that one is not far behind in the rankings. No, the comment in question is one which flute players will just never agree on. And what does it have to do with one of these? One of the few things I can actually bake after missing many a home economics class at school. Why? Because I was having lessons in this. Yes, this cylindrical tube of metal has been part of my life since high school, when I actively chose to swap that smaller plastic specimen, better known as the stuff of most parents' nightmares, the recorder, for something larger, shinier, and infinitely cooler.
Oh, and this one time at band camp?
Yes, it's definitely cooler. Now, I'm pretty sure if I'd asked my classmates back then, that most of them would have said, swapping a spatula for this sideways blowing tube? Not the best use of your formal education. Yeah, maybe, but 3 prime mice is still something I can play and has come in useful on more than one occasion.
Not that again! I'm out of here!
And somehow, against all odds, I've managed to turn this into a career, one that includes making weird and wacky sounds, slightly less weird and wacky sounds, and teaching others to do the same. And yes, I have to admit, I do occasionally use it as a lightsaber, even though I'm technically a Trekkie. But you know what's never been questioned? What this instrument is called. And yet, if you play it for long enough, you'll find yourself at the heart of a debate that has sparked countless discussions and more disagreements than the time Captain Kirk violated the Prime Directive. Yes, it's the age-old question of what do we call ourselves? Are we flutists? Are we flautists? And why does it matter? Let's explore the origins of this debate, and no, I promise there won't be a quiz on Jethro Tull at the end. So where did this debate even start? Like many confusing linguistic squabbles, it seems we have history to thank. You see, back in the day, I'm talking way back to the 16th century, flute players weren't arguing about their titles. They were probably just busy surviving the plague and trying not to play too many wrong notes, because we all know what happens when that happens. But then languages like French and Italian entered the chat, and things got, well, a little complicated. The French gave us flutiste. If you want to impress someone at a dinner party, that's definitely the way to go. Meanwhile, the Italians introduced us to flautista, which eventually evolved into flautist. And whilst both terms share the same root, well, they're about as similar as scones and croissants. Now, in English-speaking countries, it seems simpler to just say flutist. After all, we say flute, not flauto, right? But then somewhere along the way, flautist decided to crash the party and, well, just never left. In Britain, people leaned towards flautist, probably because, well, it sounded a bit posh. Across the pond, Americans stuck with flutist, which is faster to say and arguably makes more sense. This transatlantic divide has kept the debate alive to this day, and players often find themselves being asked about it. Indeed, British flute makers Trevor James, who hosts the popular podcast Talking Flutes, recently ran a YouTube poll asking flute players what they call themselves. 56% said flautist, which is perhaps not that surprising. Now let's talk about some of the big names in the flute world and what they call themselves. First up, Emmanuel Pahud, a Franco-Swiss flute player who at the age of 22 became the youngest ever player in the revered Berlin Philharmonic Orchestra. He's Team Flautist, but that's not really surprising given his European background. On the other hand, Korean flute sensation Jasmine Choi, who was principal flute of the Vienna Symphony, is solidly in the flutist camp. She's also a fellow YouTuber, so perhaps most of us like to go with flutist, probably because flautist sounds like we're auditioning for a Renaissance fair instead of trying to rack up views and likes. Though honestly, I would wear the costume if it helped the algorithm. And then there's perhaps the most well-known flute player of them all, Sir James Galway, who once said what I think is the best and most obvious quote about this topic ever. "I am a flute player, not a flautist. I don't have a flaut, and I've never flauted." Now, how about Lizzo? Honestly, she's been breaking so many stereotypes in the flute world that I doubt she really cares whether you say flutist or flautist. She just calls her instrument Sasha flute, which might actually be the solution to this entire debate. At the end of the day, whether you're Team Flutist or Team Flautist, what really matters is the music. This debate has been going on for centuries, and I don't see it ending anytime soon. And that's okay. It's what makes the flute world so charming and occasionally a little ridiculous. So what do you think? Are you Team Flutist or are you Team Flautist? Let me know in the comments below. And if you've got a strong opinion, can I suggest that you send it via carrier pigeon with a fresh batch of scones? Whilst the name you refer to me whilst I'm making weird and wacky sounds from this shiny pipe has never really bothered me, there is one thing I must insist upon. Now, where's it gone? Where's it gone? Oh! That you put the jam on first.